Hey, today I'm going to show you how I did this analysis on 182,000 tweets from the US Congress. So basically, since my data set is tweets, I'm going to need a scraping tool, which just takes data from, online sources. And Graphext has its own scraping tool called Tractor, which is available for pro accounts. And it lets you scrape data from Twitter, from Instagram, from Facebook, and not only can I scrape data from individual accounts, but I can even do it from lists of accounts. These lists come from official accounts, in this case, House Democrats. And they're basically just all the accounts from members of House Democrats, and members of Senate from each party. So I just took four lists, House Democrats, Senate Republicans, and House Republicans, and I uploaded them into Graphext. And Graphext tells me which source all these nodes come from. The nodes are just, one row of data. Each column says things about a tweet, like the date it was published, the text that it had published, and Graphext also makes columns for all the adjectives in that text, the URL of that tweet. And so all these rows are individual tweets, and all the columns are information about those tweets. And so Graphext tells me where all those nodes, where all those rows come from. And I can group them up. So I'm going to group up House Democrats and Senate Democrats. And then I'm going to do the same with Republicans. And that way I can segment my data and make it so that I can easily see between Republicans and Democrats, because I have them grouped up. When it's such a big project, it takes some time to load, because one click means, choosing about 120,000 nodes. I can add manually a segmentation, so a way to divide data into subsets, and then I can choose which parts of data I want to go into each subset, which is what I'm doing now. I'm going to choose the Republicans now. And since Graphext lets me sort of cross-filter data, I can apply one filter. For example, I can apply the parties filter, and then I can apply another filter, like, I can just filter it through date and make it only tweets published from April to July. I can cross-filter that information and see only tweets by Republicans from April till July instead of the whole of the tweets. Here we go with the Republicans. And then I can just save this segmentation. We can see that Republicans published only 38% of tweets, which is really low. It's a really low amount of tweets. And that's actually one of the first things I bring up during in the article is that Republicans actually posted 38%. We just saw tweets, and however, if we analyze the top 10% most retweeted, we can see that they actually have more in that top percent, which just means they're really efficient at creating them. And the way we did this is we separated the data here in retweets, and we saw, for example, here I selected from 18,000 tweets to 200,000, and there are only 240 tweets that have that amount of retweets. So we have to bring it down to get the top 10% of retweets. And now, we can see what worked for people. So we can already see some trends here. We can see that in the top 10%, there are a lot of tweets that have to do with impeachment, with China. These are popular tweets. And but we can even, we can go further and see popular tweets for Democrats only. So we can already see, a lot of interesting patterns here. And so we can analyze this data and we can segment it however we want. And there's a line graph that I uploaded, which I got in the tab Trends, and it lets me see how many nodes or how many rows, how many tweets were posted by date. And we can see how many tweets were posted by date by subject, or we can even see, if we choose this for color mapping, we can choose how many tweets every party, each party tweeted during this time. Here we go. You can see that, Republicans started really strong, but, oh, wait, this is retweets. Sorry, I thought it was not count. I was like, what is going on? Because Democrats definitely posted more tweets, as we can see here. They've posted, they've had sort of the same highs and the same lows, but we can see that Democrats are always posting more tweets, which makes the fact that they can't get that many retweets just, prove that they're less practical, less efficient at creating those tweets. And I also find it funny because when you go to Republican adjectives, right? I think what's interesting in terms of when we try to compare things is instead of seeing the overall thing, we can adjust this to how it's shown, so we can see which tweets each one showed more. So I can go by selection and which adjectives each party chose more. I can go by selection and then see that they use the word great a lot and small and American. And these are words that worked for them, because if we analyze the top 10% we're going to see that. So that's sort of how I went about doing these types of graphs, comparing them to the top 10% retweeted. And then there's also a graph which I did, which talks about Corona. Let me see. Oh yeah, also it was really cool because I did this analysis the first 2 weeks of July or so, and I was already starting to see these sort of patterns where using the word American, is very likely that that tweet will get popular just because it includes that word. And I started seeing that. I started seeing that Republicans got really popular when tweeting about China. And then on the 20th of July, which was when I was already done with the project, uh, Trump posted this tweet, which I thought was really funny because it literally includes, all the things that we found here. And the way I did about doing the graph I was talking about before, which is this one. This I did in the Trends tab. And the way I did it was I created another automatic cluster like this one, which, segments the data into two parties. I segmented the data into, things that talked about COVID and things that talked about COVID-19. The way I did it was I went into text, which is here. These are the words that are used. And I sort of selected all tweets with words like coronavirus, COVID, uh, virus in general, just pandemic as well. Any words that were really closely related to coronavirus, I I made them into clusters. And you can see that, the cluster that Graphext automatically made for testing coronavirus, it's the one that has, pretty much all of these tweets. And so I segmented the data into COVID, and then I separated it into Democrats and Republicans. But instead of doing it in this graph, I did it in this kind of graph. So I could see the percentages by comparing how much they tweeted about COVID with how much they didn't tweet about COVID. And that way I organized it into percentages.